Hello, everyone. This is Stacy. Welcome to The Landing. Hello, and welcome back to The Landing. I am very excited about my guest today. We have Mr. Thom Styron with us, and this is a young man that I have known all my life, and he has done so much for Down East and for his community, and I'm sure that most of you listening probably know Mr. Thom Styron, but I'm going to turn the mic over to him and let him introduce himself and let us know a little bit who his crowd is, who he is.
Good afternoon, everybody. My full name is Elvin Thomas Styron, and when my daddy called me Elvin Thomas, I knew he meant business right then.
You're in trouble.
So he got my attention. Anyway, I was Tommy until I was 40, and I said, well, I need a marketing name because at that time I'd gone into the insurance business. So I was on a hospital trip because I was on the hospital board. On the way from the airport, I kept seeing these real estate signs, and it was Thom, T-H-O-M. My friends in Beaufort calls me Thom. But anyway, I overcame that, and so now I just go by T-H-O-M. It's T-Y-R-O-N, of course. Of course, down east, people mostly call it Starn, but it is Styron. But like David Copperfield, I was born. Only I was better off than he was because he had to leave home shortly thereafter when he got a little bit older. He couldn't stay home with folks that loved him, and the community loved him, and parents took care of their own children and others too. And I quickly learned that if I was reprimanded by a neighbor or by a school teacher or anybody, I was going to pay the price. Because Daddy would call me Elvin Thomas, and so would my mother, Nellie. Anyway, growing up in Davis was a lot of fun, and it was very educational. We learned a lot of things. I remember going down to Mr. Edward Piner's little workshop behind his house there in Davis, and he was a man that had real skills with a small hand axe, and he would chop out boats for us. He didn't have a bandsaw. He would chop out those boats, and they were the prettiest things you've ever seen. And we would go down to the shore and fit them out, fix a little piece of net to go on them and haul them around picking up shells. We also spent our time sometimes chasing lightning bugs and butterflies, chasing mosquito trucks. Now that was a lot of fun. Wasn't very good on our lungs, and now I have a lung disorder. Later on, when Mother would go to head shrimp, I'd go along. I remember standing at the bench with her, putting shrimp that I would head into her bucket. And it was really rough when the boats would come in from Pamlico Sound because they'd been there all week, and the boats would usually get in anywhere on Friday night. It might be 8 or 9 o'clock. So they'd start loading the shrimp heading benches with shrimp, and we might head shrimp until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
It was rough on your lower back.
Now, were you young doing this?
As young as 9 or 10.
Yes, wow.
Yeah, and then later on, I guess 12 or 13, I'm doing some of that.
Yes, wow.
But everybody pitched in, and there were other kids there doing the same thing. I did a lot of grass mowing at home, and of course we spent a lot of time at church activities, youth groups. I was in the young boys group there in the First Baptist Church in Davis called the Royal Ambassadors. Mm-hmm. And we learned a lot about Scripture and helping other people. We didn't have Boy Scouts at the time, so we were still fortunate in what we learned in the community from church activities. And later on, I remember going to Smyrna. That first day of driving up in the school bus, when I got off the bus, I heard a young kid crying. And I looked over in this little alcove, and it was a boy, had his Sears Roebuck blue jeans on. They're stiff as a board, of course, when you first get them. And it was hot. He had them rolled up at the cuff, about 3 or 4 inches. But he'd peed all over himself, and he was crying and distraught. I felt compassion, I really did. But that went on with a lot of kids sometimes that first day of school.
Yeah, it's hard.
Their environment changes, all the people they're meeting. It's sort of rough on their system. But wearing those blue jeans in a school that's not air conditioned, yeah, it was. You'd get home in the afternoon. If you had white underwear, they'd turn blue.
The blue dye.
Yeah, that blue dye. So it was quite a deal with no air conditioning. But we survived that, like a lot of kids before us. My first year in Miss Minnie's class, Miss Minnie Davis, she taught by the look-see method of reading. And it didn't really make sense to me. I was following it, but I wasn't excelling in it. And she sent Mother a note. She said, Tom is failing a little bit, or not failing, but falling behind on reading. So my mother took it upon herself to teach me phonics like she'd learned, putting sounds together with the letters, and I started excelling. And by the 7th grade, I had a teacher, Carolyn Willis Davis. One day she told me, because I was doing well in her class, she told me I was special. And that meant a lot. And she said, now being special means you've got to prove things to people. And you've got to try to be better. So I guess that took hold. And I really liked math and science. We had some good math teachers from the 9th grade, well, even in the grade school, middle grades. But as I got in high school, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, then geometry. We didn't have anything beyond that. And Roy Hilton Willis from Stacy was our geometry teacher. And geometry really was interesting to me. I remember, I think I had a 97 average for the year.
Oh, wow.
So anyway.
It made sense to you, huh?
It made sense. It clicked. What you had to do is learn those axioms and figure out the formula and get it done.
Yep. Now I'm gonna interrupt you real quickly,
just
to make sure everybody understands. You went to Smyrna your entire education,
I did.
right? So that would be, you started in first grade,
1956.
Okay, and then
I graduated in 65, and I excelled in high school. I was a school bus driver, so had added some little money to the family coffers. And buy shoes and clothes at the beginning of school. Got away from those stiff blue jeans. Anyway, my senior year, I graduated valedictorian of my class, even though in the first grade I was sort of labeled as being a little slow.
See?
Mother told me, and Miss Carolyn Willis told me, hey, you're special. So that always helps a kid.
It sure does.
It really does.
Yes. When you were in school, what extracurriculars did you participate in?
I participated in athletics to some degree, mostly intramural stuff. But then when it came to the competition, baseball and basketball, I sat on the bench with the keeping statistics. So
Of course
I was
you did.
involved. I took the trips, but I didn't really get involved in, except my senior year. Smyrna had a JV football team that last year of school, and 3 of us seniors participated. Me and Brian Salter and maybe Tommy McGee. A lot of the other folks, Jonathan Willis, Kenny Lewis from Smyrna, kids that had been really top-notch in athletics, they were on there. And our first game with Beaufort, we beat them. So that was a win for us.
Yes,
So
that was a big deal.
Really enjoyed that.
Yes.
And in I guess the 11th grade, no, in the 10th grade, I think I became class president because I'd been excelling in my class scores. And they seemed to think that because you got good grades, you'd be a good leader. So I guess I was to a degree. And so I was class president 10th, 11th, and 12th grade in our classes.
Oh, wow.
And then in the 11th grade, I became a school bus driver and drove bus number 13 in the 11th grade and the 12th grade.
Now, on the buses, was that all age kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, all mixed?
Because I would leave Davis early mornings, and first stop would be in Williston, pick those kids up, and then I would put them out and then drive up to Straits and Gloucester to pick those kids up and then come on back.
Oh, wow.
So it was a sort of a lengthy ride. Yeah. Later on, when my wife came along, she drove the same bus, number 13.
Oh, how about that?
But she lived in Stacy. She had to drive to Cedar Island, pick all those kids up, come back, picking up some high school kids and going on to East Carteret.
Mm-hmm.
So she had a long day at that too.
Yeah, that's a long day.
Bus number 13's always been special. We ended up married on September the 13th when we decided to do the wedding deal.
So 13's your lucky number.
13's been lucky for us so far. We've been married 54 years now.
I love it.
In the 12th grade, like I said, I was valedictorian. I got a nomination for appointment to the Naval Academy, and I went to Jacksonville Naval Hospital for the preliminary medical exams, and my blood pressure was high. Average times they checked it, every time they checked it, it was higher than their standards. So I had to come back and go to sea level every afternoon and morning, get Dr. Best to check my blood pressure because he was a Navy-approved doctor. And then in the afternoons, do the same thing. And average readings were too high, so I didn't proceed any further on the nomination to the Naval Academy. I worked in high school. Like I said, I mowed some grass around home, but I got my first job with paying job outside the home with Julian Guthrie. Julian had the High Tide Boat Works at Williston, and there I think that I was getting like 32 cents an hour for a full day from like, I think it was either 7 or 7:30 we started and ended in around 4:30. Those were hot days there in the summertime, and the busiest greenheads, yellow flies, mosquitoes you've ever seen.
Did you feed them?
We fed them. And I learned that what hard work was when you're laying on your back underneath of a boat, sanding the bottom to make it smooth so they can put copper paint on it. But you do that all day long, sanding, and there was no such thing as required mask or goggles. So you would maybe wear some sunglasses or something to keep that directly out of your eyes. You get home, you take your glasses off, you'd look like a raccoon with spectacles on. Anyway, let me see. I ended up going to Chapel Hill. I did have a small scholarship, and I started there in the fall of 1965. I remember the classes and going to the library and thumbing home.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. Those were the days you didn't have any worry about riding with folks. Mm-hmm. Only on one occasion did I feel uneasy. And
so you would thumb home from Chapel Hill?
Yeah.
And how long would that take? I mean, would you get picked up
Probably
normally quickly?
3-4 hours, pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah. I remember one time I'd been waiting quite a while, and I had my suitcase, and I said, well, I'll start limping. And this load of women, I think they were maybe from down east, but I didn't know them at the time. And they stopped and picked me up. And they carried me right on the Davis shore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
that is
anyway,
funny.
that was fun. That was
Oh my
always
goodness.
been a good story.
That's funny.
Let me see. I've already talked about Julian's Boathouse. Oh, there, I met some very interesting people that were very helpful with younger folks coming along, but they loved to pick on them, make them tough. Willard Maley Guthrie. Willard Maley, I remember one day, he told my friend Brian Salter, he said, Brian, I want you to go up there to the workbench and bring me that green wood stretcher. So Brian gets up from the project he was working on, went to the front bench, and he looked and looked and looked, and he came back and said, Will, I can't find anything painted green that'll stretch wood. And of course, everybody cackled out, you know.
Oh, yes.
No such thing as a wood stretcher. But there, Terry Guthrie and his dad, Bonnie, they were always real helpful. Terry was more the technical person for the firm. He would set the engines, get them all lined up, ready for the fitting of the engine to the shaft, and everything had to be smooth, and he did that. I guess one of the most tragic things there was we left one Friday afternoon. We just worked all day launching that boat, and came back Monday morning. The boat was sitting on the bottom.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. Somebody had forgot to close the silk cock on the bottom of the
Oh,
boat.
my goodness.
But they got it
That's
pumped
terrible.
out, and I guess got it. I don't know what kind of insurance maybe paid off.
Oh, man.
But Charlie Bill Hancock and Roosevelt, I got teamed up with them. That was Roosevelt Davis, but Charlie Bill Hancock's Joel was father, of course.
Yes, oh,
And
yes.
he was a real gentleman. I never heard him tell anything off color. Now, Roosevelt made up for it. And he would tell all kinds of yarns. And don't want to offend any family members that might be around today.
Everything said is out of love here.
Yeah, that's right. But his favorite beverage was old rocking chair, is what he called it. Later on in the summers, I worked in the boathouse even in the high school years.
That's what I was
in
going
the
to ask you.
summertime. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But once I got to Chapel Hill, I came back. My dad had gone out of the boat building business and was doing plumbing, heating, and air conditioning that he trained in during the war years. And so he had his state license, and I started working with him in the trades, and ended up getting my state license for heating, air conditioning, plumbing. So anyway, I kept that, but in 1976, I went into the insurance business. I interviewed with Frank Cassiano in Moorhead. He was one of the community's or the county's leaders, and he was an insurance agent with Jefferson Pilot Life Insurance Company. So I did that for a number of years, right on until to open my first office in Moorhead with Jefferson Pilot Life Insurance Company. And I worked in that until 1987. I got a contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield doing health insurance and Medicare. And I saw, as I was getting older, a lot of friends and older folks that I'd worked with through the years had a need for Medicare. So I started spending more time in that than in life insurance. And then in 1986, Valerie came in business with me. And from there,
Valerie's your wife.
Valerie's my wife of 54 years.
Yes.
And I started the business, but I claim that she grew the business. So she helped drive me a little bit more. Instead of going windsurfing 3 days a week, she might make me cut it down to 2. Even though I'd never been a team sport player, windsurfing was really my niche, and I enjoyed it a great deal, still do. There's nothing like sailing across North River on an afternoon and the sun setting in the west, and there's a path of sparkling water coming to you. It's good for the soul.
That's something I've never done.
Yeah.
I bet it is beautiful.
It is beautiful. Anyway, our business has done very well since Valerie came in with me, and in 2022, that enrollment year, at the end of the year, we made the tip of the spear. We were the #1 agency in North Carolina
Oh,
for Blue
wow.
Cross Blue Shield.
Congratulations.
And yeah, it was quite a bit
Yeah.
of accolades for that. So business
Wow.
has been good. The Lord's been very good to us. During all this, in 1993, we lost our son. He had a full scholarship to NC State and got killed in an auto crash and coming home Valentine weekend just outside of Raleigh. So it's tough to do that if you don't have the Lord in your life, and He gives you the strength and the courage to continue forward. I did have trouble letting go for about 3 years, and that grief would come over me. And one day I'd go into Jared's grave, and I laid there and I prayed for about an hour. And finally, it was like the Lord speaking to me, saying, "Tommy, you've got to let him go." And I thought about that, those thoughts going through my head, because I said, I agree with you. I thank you for the 19 years you shared him, and I release him to you. And things got better.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord.
Yes.
Anyway, all I can say is praise the Lord for all of our life, the good, the bad. Our daughter came with us full time last year. And
Oh, great. I didn't know that.
She was in charge of the wastewater lab for the town of Beaufort because she had a degree in industrial hygiene. But she didn't want us to sell the business. We had a good offer from Blue Cross to buy our book of business. But when she said that she wanted to give it a try, we said, well, we will make you part of our retirement plan. And so,
that's right. And so she started when?
Summer before last.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's been with us over a full year now. Yeah. We work during open enrollment, usually from 8 to 8 every day. And that's seeing people up to 8 o'clock.
Wow.
And then you've got anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, sometimes more, getting all those applications entered in the computer. This past year, we had some nights it was 11:45 when we would leave the office, then back at 8 o'clock the next morning.
Oh, my goodness.
So that goes on from October the 15th right on until December the 7th.
And so now's when you are revving up, getting ready for that.
That's right. We've been getting ready, doing the approved exams and studying all the different changes in Medicare. So that's about where we are.
Okay. Well, our time is almost spent, but I want to ask you, I'm going to throw something your way. I want you to end on this and see what you have to say about this. Growing up with the education, a good, solid education that you got at Smyrna, how do you think that has benefited and shaped Thom Styron? How do you look at your education? Like, do you feel like it was a blessing, or do you think that
a blessing?
Okay, and why? Because I agree, but why?
When you've got basic education, it builds your confidence. Situations arise, and immediately you see some opportunities in what's happening. And you've got the basic skills to handle those. Without that basic understanding, math, science, reading, you've got to know how to read. I've got a client in his 70s, and he cannot read. He cannot write. He signs an X. But if he needs to pay a bill, he goes to the bank, they write him a check. And to give to the client. So he depends on a lot of people, but that would be a very unusual case. But other people can read, they just don't take time to do it.
Right.
They're lazy readers. They'd rather look at a comic book than read that letter from their insurance company saying, you better pay this bill or you're not going to have any insurance.
Right. Is there any advice that you would give to today's kids? Because, now's the time. The kids are getting ready to go back to school. Yeah. What advice would you give a student?
Number one, I think they need to take a serious moment to look in the mirror and do some self-study and ask for guidance from our Heavenly Father. Now, that guidance might come in different ways. Normally, you might be praying for something specific, but this reminds me of John Templeton, who's the father of the Templeton Mutual Funds, and he was being interviewed by Forbes magazine. He said, I pray every day that, not that my stocks and bonds will do well, but praying makes me think more clearly. So when you start to pray, be quiet, listen, and you will hear guidance in one way or another. But do some introspection, look at yourself and what your goals are, and maybe write them down and see how you're progressing every day. Maybe every day look in that mirror and say, do I like who I see? And if you don't like who you see, talk to the Lord. Maybe he'll speak to you in one way or another and tell you that maybe you need to change a few things.
I like this. Accountability is what I'm hearing
Accountability.
from you.
Oh, yeah.
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 Well, I appreciate you coming because I know this is a busy time for you, but I know that I have enjoyed, but I've grown from hearing you talk. And I hope you know that how much we appreciate you being a part of this project.
Well, being from down east, I'm always partial to down east people.
Oh, yeah. We love each other.
In participating in town, once I got in the professional levels, I guess, going to the Kiwanis Club, going to the Rotary Club, and all the different activities, the hospital board, the college board, the board of trustees at Carter Craven. I've been on that board 29 years, 10 years on the college board, 6 years on the hospital board. Put yourself out and volunteer. Do things because that gives you confidence. It teaches you a lot of things about your county and the area you live in. And if you're making a good living, give back to the community in which you live.
Well, thank you. And hopefully we'll have you back again sometime to share some more wisdom with us.
Well, I hope I'm here 10 years from now.
I hope so, too.
I'd be 87. I don't know.
I hope so, too.
This lung condition has its toll sometimes.
Yes.
But I do appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share some of these thoughts.
Well, thank you again.
You're welcome. Love you.
I love you. Such a good conversation with Mr. Thom Styron. His fond memories were indeed fun to revisit with him. He contributes so much to our Down East communities, and we appreciate him greatly. Join us next week when we journey down memory lane once again, this time with Miss Jan Gillikin, who will share her memories of Harker's Island School. Until then, stay safe and be kind.